It wasn't Xiao Di, it was the master of divination arts. His face was pale and bruised, and there was a deep mark around his neck, like from a rope. He smiled, showing his teeth, and said to me, "My daughter doesn't want your offerings, she only wants your life. She came for me first, and asked when you would come keep her company." Everything went black, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. Blinding white lights, and the strong smell of disinfectant filled the room. Lin Shulan was sitting beside me with bloodshot eyes. The moment she saw me awake, she rushed over and grabbed my hand. She told me I had fainted in the basement, that someone had found me and taken me to the hospital. Old Zhang from the village had gone early in the morning to the old house to look for something. He heard noises from the basement. He went down and found me lying on the floor. I asked what had happened to the master. Her face turned extremely strange. The master had died the previous night, hanged in the courtyard of his own house. I forced myself upright. Impossible. I saw him in the basement last night. Lin Shulan looked at me with fear in her eyes. "What are you talking about?" "Nonsense. The coroner said he had been dead for at least 6 hours. By the time I went into the basement, he had already been dead for quite a while." My mind went blank, and my whole body turned cold. Lin Shulan gave me even more terrifying information. The police had found a note in the master's hand. On it was written a sentence. "Shen Wendong, your daughter asked me to tell you that you are next." I lay there in bed, unable to speak. Lin Shulan held my hand, trembling. She asked me what we should do now. What did Xiao Di really want? I closed my eyes, my mind filled with the master's bruised face, the rope mark around his neck, and those words, "When will you come keep us company?" Suddenly, the hospital room door opened. A nurse stuck her head inside and said, "Mr. Chen, your daughter has come to see you." My eyes snapped open. Lin Shulan beside me also froze stiff. The little girl had already walked in. She wore the same flower dress from 20 years ago, her horn-shaped braids tied neatly, and an innocent smile on her face. She walked over to the bed, tilted her head at me, and asked why I was in the hospital, if I was sick. Instinctively, I leaned backward. Her hand froze in the air. Slowly, the smile faded from her face. In a low voice, she asked, "Don't you like me anymore?" Lin Shulang, sitting nearby, trembled violently. Xiao Di turned her head toward her and asked where she had been last night. Why hadn't she opened the door? Lin Shulang, eyes wide with terror, stammered that she had not heard any knocking. Xiao Di smiled innocently. "That's right. Mommy was with me in my room. She couldn't open the door." Lin Zulang felt a buzzing in her head. There had been someone in Xiao Di's room last night, and Xiao Di had called her mom. Lin Shulang turned pale. The question kept spinning in her mind. Who was that woman? Xiao Di kept speaking with a smile. "When is my brother coming back? I miss him. He said he would play hide and seek with me." Lin Zhulan and I exchanged a glance. We saw fear in each other's eyes. Our son was still at my mother-in-law's house. He knew nothing about what was happening. Xiao Di climbed onto the bed. She squeezed herself between Lin Zhulan and me, wrapping one arm around each of us. Smiling happily, she said, "Finally we're together. That's wonderful." Her arms were ice cold, and the chill passed through clothes and skin straight into the heart. When we returned home from the hospital, the way Lin Chulan looked at me had completely changed. She no longer spoke to me the same way. It was as if she always wanted to say something but held herself back. Whenever I asked what was wrong, she only shook her head and refused to speak. That afternoon, our son came home with his fiancée, Zhou Yating. Xiao Di peeked out from her room doorway. She stared at Cheng Hao for a long time. It was impossible to tell whether the look in her eyes was curiosity or something else. Suddenly, she ran over and hugged Cheng Hao's arm. In a soft voice, she called out, "Big brother, how did you grow up so much?" Frightened, Cheng Hao looked at me in confusion and embarrassment. I still had not told him the truth. I had only said she was the daughter of some friends staying for a few days. Xiao Di looked up again and asked, "Do you remember when we used to play hide and seek as children?" Chen Hao shook his head. "I don't remember. I was very little back then." Xiao Di shrugged, let go of his arm, and stepped aside, but her eyes never left Chen Hao for even a moment. That intense stare made my skin crawl. Zhou Yating, however, quickly grew fond of Xiao Di. She chatted with her for a long while and brought her many candies and toys. Quietly, she slid a finger across her phone screen in a natural motion while handing over the toys. Xiao Di accepted them and thanked her. "Thank you, sister. Miss, will you be good to my brother?" Zhou Yating smiled and replied, "Of course." Xiao Di said, "That's good, otherwise I would get angry." She said it smiling, but there was something strange about that smile. Zhou Yating noticed it too. Her own smile froze instantly. Lin Shulan and I exchanged another glance. Neither of us dared say a word. It was not until nightfall, after our son and Zhou Yating had left, that she pulled me into the bedroom. Lowering her voice, she told me she had noticed something strange. I asked her what it was. Pale-faced, she recounted the details from dinner. When Xiao Di was little, she held chopsticks with her left hand, pressing the tops with her thumb. No matter how hard they tried, they could never correct it. But today, her way of holding chopsticks was perfect, exactly like an adult's. Lin Shulan had also noticed Xiao Di eating 3 pieces of braised pork, swallowing the fatty parts without chewing. As a child, Xiao Di hated fat and always spat it out. She had even heard Xiao Di humming a modern song in the living room, one of today's songs. But when Xiao Di was 12, there wasn't even electricity in the village. She only knew very old nursery rhymes. These changes terrified her. Trembling, she told me about the previous night. She had gotten up to use the bathroom, and while passing Xiao Di's room, she heard someone talking inside. She pressed her ear to the door. It was Xiao Di, talking in her sleep. Over and over, she repeated the same sentence. "Mom, I know it by heart. I know everything. I won't make mistakes." Hearing that made my hair stand on end. I stayed silent, unable to say anything. Tears welled in Lin Julan's eyes. She said she was afraid. Afraid that thing was not Xiao Di. Afraid it had returned to take our entire family with it. That night, I could not sleep. My mind kept replaying everything. The next morning, I was awakened by noises in the kitchen. I jumped out of bed and rushed over. Xiao Di was standing in the kitchen staring at the stove. On the stove sat a pot with something boiling inside. I walked closer and asked what she was doing. doing? She turned and smiled innocently. She said she was making soup that her mother had taught her. She said it was her favorite soup when she was little. I looked into the pot. It was sweet potato porridge. My heart skipped a beat. Shouty loved sweet potato porridge, but only the three of us knew that. Clenching my teeth to suppress my fear, I asked how she knew how to make it. She tilted her head and looked at me. Mom taught me. She taught me everything. I asked, "Where is your mother?" She pointed toward the corner. There was no one there. There, don't you see her, Dad? I looked where she pointed. There was nothing except the shadow on the peeling wall. I ran out of the kitchen and rushed to the bedroom to find Lin Shulan. She had just gotten up and was folding the sheets. I grabbed her hand and quickly told her what Shouty had said. Lin Shulan instantly turned pale. She said, "Only the two of us knew that. Not even our son remembers anymore. It can only be the real Shouty." As soon as she finished speaking, her legs gave out and she collapsed onto the bed. While we were talking, the doorbell outside rang. Lin Shulan and I exchanged glances. She went to open the door. It was our son Chen Hao and Zhou Yeting. The moment Zhou Yeting entered, she frowned and asked, "Have you two been arguing?" Lin Shulan quickly wiped her glasses and said, "No, nothing. What brings you here?" Zhou Yeting sat down and told us that she and Chen Hao had made a decision. The wedding would be on the 8th of next month. Her parents had consulted someone, and that day was considered extremely auspicious. My heart skipped a beat and I immediately said, "But that's so soon." Zhou Yating looked at me. "My parents want it done quickly." "Oh right, where's the little girl? I want to see her." Barely had she said this when Shouty walked out of her room wearing a white dress and those horn-shaped braids. Smiling softly, she approached and said, "Hello, sister." Zhou Yating smiled and beckoned her closer. She took Shouty's hand and looked her up and down. Smiling, she asked, "How old are you? What's your name?" Shouty answered, "Jouse." Zhou Yating asked, "And what do you like to do?" Xiaodi replied, "Play hide and seek with my brother." Zhou Yating continued, "When was the time you hid the best?" Xiaodi tilted her head, thought for a moment, and said, 20 years ago. She paused and corrected herself. "I mean, a long time ago, when Dad took me." When she said 20 years ago, her tone faltered slightly. I didn't pay much attention at the time, but Zhou Yating narrowed her eyes. In the end, she said nothing. At noon, we invited them to stay for lunch. Lin Zhulan prepared the meal. Xiaodi stayed in the living room with Zhou Yating. I helped in the kitchen, but my eyes kept drifting toward the living room. Zhou Yating continued asking Xiaodi questions, and Xiaodi answered smoothly. During the meal, I carefully observed Xiaodi. Her way of holding chopsticks was flawless, even better than mine. She ate 3 pieces of braised pork and swallowed the fat effortlessly, without any hesitation. She even deliberately picked up a fatty piece. Her eyes swept across Lin Shulang and me as she smiled and said, "This is delicious." Watching her movements sent chills down my spine. Zhou Yating was also observing her. She shot me a furtive glance. There was something unreadable in her eyes. After lunch, Zhou Yating and Cheng Hao left. Before leaving, Zhou Yating took Lin Shulan's hand. "Don't worry about the wedding. My parents will handle everything. Oh, and that little girl is very sweet, but the way she talks felt a little strange." Lin Shulan asked, "Strange how?" Zhou Yating smiled. "Nothing. She's just very cute." Then she turned around and left. I stood at the doorway watching the car drive away, my heart uneasy. I could clearly feel that Zhou Yating had meant something deeper by those words. That night, while washing dishes, Lin Shulan suddenly called me over. "Come quickly and look." I walked into the kitchen. She pointed at the stove. There was a bowl sitting there. Inside the bowl was leftover sweet potato porridge from lunch. Lin Shulan said in a trembling voice that she had not made it. She had prepared all the food herself and had never cooked sweet potato porridge. Besides, she had already washed and put away the pot from that morning long ago.